drinking my Red Bull. Man, I'm feeling good today.
Join the team.
Didn't start my timer. Well, this might be a long one then. Hey team, this is McGuire Review, and today we are taking a look at the City of Kings, so let's lock in and get ready to go. Alright team, we got the City of Kings. Now this one is from the City of Games. Nice. It is designed by Frank West, and this one brings us a 1 to 4 player experience, so you can solo this one. And it is an awesome solo experience. I have really enjoyed it so far. Now it does offer scenarios that you can play through, kind of one-shot scenarios, as well as a full-scale campaign with a very nice storyline. 90 to 180 minutes on those stories, which are part of the campaigns. The stories take a little bit longer. If you want a quicker gameplay, you can just take on an individual scenario, which is around 45 to 90 minutes. And you really can get those if you're playing solo, really close to that 45, sometimes even lower. The more you get to know how to play the game, the quicker you can kind of move around and play out your tactics that you want to do in the game. Because this game does offer a lot of different type of gameplay, I would say styles, all wrapped up into one platform. And there's a lot here for what I feel like is a fantastic price point. And that's mainly what we're going to talk about today, is the mechanics of this game, how this game plays, and just how smart I think this game really is when you break down the mechanics of how they work together. So that's what we're going to talk about and focus on for this particular video. There is ages 14 plus on there, and I would say you can get some folks in younger than that. And I haven't found really any artwork that would indicate, needing that 14 age range. Okay, so that is the game. You can see it does come in a very nice, very awesome artistic box. Pretty good size. And there's a lot of different stuff. Bear, if you can hold that. Thank you. There's a lot of different stuff that it comes with. What you see right here, and we're going to move this off the table, are all the expansions that come with this platform. So I'll start off saying, how can you get this? Where can you get this? Well, this is out in retail now. It was a Kickstarter. It was delivered. It's now out across retail. I'll just call it Miniatures Market because they are one place that has all of what you see on the table. It's the base set plus all of the expansions. Miniatures Market does have this in stock. You can get everything that's on the table, plus there's some more stuff down here I'm going to show you. This game comes with some fantastic high quality little bags that have, some nice stitching on them as well. So the components are just absolutely fantastic. You can get this entire game for $127, about that amount, all in. If you live in the U.S., obviously, once you cross that 100 mark, you get free shipping from Miniatures Market. But, however, you can get everything for $127 all in. If you just want the base game, which is not including any of these expansions here, which really the expansions are just replacing some of the hero stand-ups with miniatures. We do have some miniatures down here, and Bear's going to load up some overhead video here in just a minute when we start to get into all of the components that we have. But there are miniatures you can get to replace the actual hero stand-ups. The enemies will still be stand-ups. They don't have an enemy pack per se, but they do have a hero miniatures pack. There's a side quests expansion, which adds more side quests to your deck here. So if you want to pick that up. And then there are 2 larger box expansions, which add a couple more different types of heroes, as well as more storylines. So you're getting a lot in these expansions. You're getting not only miniatures and new characters, but also more storyline to play through. And each one of these expansions are only around the $18 mark. Other than this one's like $7. So the expansions are all pretty cheap. If you want to build out the game in time, you can do that. No need to really go all in at once, unless you just absolutely love this game and this platform. You might as well pick it up for the price point. But there's really no reason to go all in. You get the full box game, this big boy here, that includes all of the base game. You will get that for about the $66 mark. So I feel like that's a great price point for the amount of stuff that you're getting here and the quality of these components. So I want to take a second to call that out because I was impressed with the artwork, the cardboard quality, the artwork. It's already said that, but the artwork quality, the dice, all the different types of chits, even the stuff that comes standard in the game. These little wood bits were kind of an extra sort of Kickstarter upgrade, these little wood pieces. There are cardboard chits that represent everything in the game that I would have here in this tray. That would be little wood bits. Let's take a look at our stand-ups really quick. So we do have these stand-ups, and here's a good example of one here, our Calamus Earthshaker. This is a pretty cool character. I do have him here. I've been playing with him as well as our Dwarven character here, which I thought was pretty awesome. But here's an example of a stand-up of one of those characters, and then, you know, if you wanted to upgrade for the expansion and get the actual miniature for that instead, if you want to see that on the board versus, you know, your stand-up, you can do that. Okay, your enemies will obviously be stand-ups as well. So your main bosses are what you're going to find on this. There are a ton of different types of enemies. That's probably the most complex thing in this game, is just the amount of combinations, permutations, whatever you want to say there, of how many types of enemy types as well as boss abilities and types you're able to generate in the game. It's an enormous amount. And I like the way the system is designed to give you that variability with all the different types of enemies you can run into. Because you may run into the same, you know, you pick a picture here. Mechanically, these are all the same. This is kind of the base piece that you would pick for your enemy. And then you're going to select one of these little bars here, and you'll go in order. You do kind of put those in order so the monsters do scale and get more difficult as far as this bar is concerned as you take on one after the other. You just kind of put this little bar here with stats underneath that enemy, and I'm not going to go through every one of these stats and what everything means. It's all very straightforward. It's explained. They have 2 different rule books. We're going to look at that here in a second. But you're going to take the stat bar, and then that's where you're going to bring in these awesome little baggies. And there's going to be some marks on these bars that are going to indicate to you, and even tiles that you'll be landing on or wherever monsters would be indicating different types of abilities that you would pull out of these bags. So there is a hard bag, a medium bag, and an easy bag. And these are awesome bags. I was really impressed with the quality of these actual bags. Very nice felt bags, good and thick. They're large, so you really can get your hand in there. I mean, one of the things I think some of these games fail with is whenever it's a reach into a bag and draw something out, they give you this bag that's like half of this size, and then you're like trying to get your hand in there. These are big, huge, roomy bags. You can, you know, cycle it around and pull you out an ability. And that's what these are for. You'll pull out the number of abilities that it indicates, whether green, red, or our kind of our orangish yellow color here. And you'll just put those on the monster, and that will be random abilities that monster will have with the random bar that's drawn here as you kind of go down through your stat bars. And that's the same thing for bosses as well. There's another little bar you probably can't see, it's sitting in front of here, that for the bosses each have their own bar, and you'll draw out abilities special for them as well. So that does make it pretty cool. Your main characters and some of your main bosses are going to be here as far as stand-ups. You'll be able to pop those out as you're playing through. So let's hit the rule book, and then I want to take... Bear, come on, help me out. Okay. So I want to take a second and take a look at the rule books that were included here. There is The Adventure Starts Here book, which is essentially your core rule book. It's not too long. It's a pretty easy read. And then there is the Quick Reference book. This book is essentially something that you're going to reference whenever you run into something that's a little bit more detailed. Primarily, the different creature abilities. So to keep all of the kind of weight of all of that stat kind of stuff out of the main rulebook and to make this a little bit of a cleaner, easier read, they put all those types of things in this book. And you will not need this book until you start to play, and then you run into all of a sudden a creature ability where it says... Frost, Storm All, or Fury, or Grab. Well, what does that mean? Because it's not printed on the card, the definition of what it means. It just literally has that word, and the ability will be on the monster. And then you'll just open this book real quick. They're all in alphabetical order. You'll go right to it. Boom, there it is. That's what it means. And it's very quick kind of stuff that's only like a sentence or two of what it actually is. So they kept it pretty light from that approach. You're also going to find in this book further examples of map tiles, and there might be some iconography that'll be on a map tile. They're pretty self-explanatory, but some of them you may be like, I can't remember what that means, or what. You can just go here, find the map tile, boom, immediately. It's the same way that the creature abilities would work, and it's going to give you that. There's also some further definition on some of the quests you can get as you go through these quests and side quests. you may have some extra information that you can get from this book on some of those quests and exactly how to complete them and how they work. So once you read this book, you're going to kind of put this book up because the rules are pretty straightforward in the way that you play. And a lot of the, like, you know, what's the phases look like and what do you do round to round, it's printed on the back of both of these books. And it's also printed right here on your absolutely fantastic player boards that I have here. It's right there. So you don't have to worry about really referencing probably this book again once you read it. It's kind of done. And then you're going to pretty much be using this smaller quick reference book until you have memorized the things that are on here. And more than likely, the only thing you're ever really going to be coming back here for is creature abilities. The map tiles you're going to memorize are going to make sense to you pretty quickly. The tokens you're going to memorize, you know, what those do. Creature abilities may take you a little bit longer because there are quite a few. I mean, there's a few pages of creatures abilities. However, you know, that's probably what you're going to primarily use this book for. Okay? Those are the books. All right, now we talked a little bit about initially that this game offers not only the scenarios, but as well as a full campaign. So they do include this little sheet here, which is pretty cool. On one side, you've got your achievements, record the date you complete each chapter, can you beat them all? So this is kind of as you go through all of the different stories and all of the chapters within all those different stories, and this is pretty much the campaign. You would record the date that you completed each one of those. And I thought that was a pretty neat little thing to kind of track along the way, especially after you're done. And I haven't started to write mine on here, but especially after you're done with the whole thing, you can go back and, you know, look at this and say, that was a really cool journey, and kind of have those memories of the gameplay and the story and kind of how you worked through that. Or even, you know, it might take you a while to get through this, and after you're all done, pack it away and pull it out years later and say, there's like two years of gameplay it took me to get all through, or maybe it was a month you just plowed through. So I thought that was a cool little kind of relic they put in the game there for you. And then on the other side, there is another side that says achievements. Record the date you complete each scenario. Can you do it without dying? Can you do them all without dying? So this is when it gets into the actual scenarios that are included, which are kind of the one-shot little missions. They're not part of the more story-driven campaign. And there's a number of those. We'll take a look at them here first. They're right here in this deck. You can complete the date that you did all of those, and were you able to complete them all without dying. So that's kind of the challenge here on this side. So I thought that was a neat little thing to include. And I hope, team, you're already seeing sort of the number of hours here that you probably have from a gameplay outlook with this game. And now that this price point of $66 is probably starting to lock in with what you're really getting here with the base game, as well as the number of gameplay hours that you're going to be getting for that, you know, that price point. So when we look at our story, here's the first card, which is Story 1, Setup, First Blood. So each story is going to give you one of these little cards here, and it's basically going to give you how to set up the board, which you'll see right here. That reflects right here. So I have this kind of set up with the Story 1 setup, which is going on right here. All right, I'm going to take this token tray, set this over here with Bear, get that out of our way so we got a little more room. And then it will give you a few other things depending on how many players there are in the game. There's a certain time of day. There is this little time of day tracker that's right here, which is pretty cool. And that is a major kind of mechanic in this game, round to round. There's also a certain level of, where you will start with the creature bar stats. So as you get further and further, you won't be able to start just on 1, because 1's the easiest, then 2, then 3, then 4. You may have to start on like 6 or 8 or 10. So the first monster that you battle, taking that you would have kind of XP'd up by then, and you also would have more experience as a player, you would start with more difficult monsters right off the bat. There's a few other stats you'll set here as well. And then at the bottom there, it tells you starting locations for the heroes and the workers. You may say, ooh, heroes and workers. Well, again, this game does offer a lot of different types of mechanics, and there is a worker placement aspect of this game as well, which I'm really loving these titles are taking advantage of, giving you a game that has the leveling up kind of RPG aspect, the character build aspect, also gives you the adventuring aspect, I won't want to say dungeon crawl, it's more of just exploration, adventuring, questing, I think is the best word there, but then also gives you that worker placement where you can harvest and scavenge and determine where to put workers on the board to kind of get your benefit and get your resources that you'll be able to use over the course of the game. That's what you're going to find in these setup cards, and then each one then is going to go right into a chapter. So you'll do Story 1 setup, and then you'll start to read Chapter 1, and it will give you a backstory, a full campaign story, and then it will give you an objective and rewards. The rewards for this one are 2 equipment cards, so you won't ever start out the game with just, equipment cards in hand. You will have to gain them, and you can't just go to the City of Kings, and that's where my characters are now. This little piece here straps on the side of the game board that you build, and that essentially is the City of Kings. And there's a few things that are tracked there. We'll talk about it here in a second. But this is where you have to go to purchase sort of from the stores different types of items and equipment. And you can't just go there and start saying, okay, I'm going to purchase one and flip it over. It has to be rewarded. You have to find it along your journey, and then it becomes available in the trade district. It's unlocked, and then you can come back and be able to purchase it if you have the right amount of resources. So the objective on this first one is travel to Oakwood. At least one hero must be on the map tile, and the story resolves. Oakwood is right here, and it is one of the things that is available to be seen whenever you set up these maps. There will be certain tiles. There will be special locations where you'll be able to see where it is. And on this first part of the quest, this first part of the story here, Chapter 1, I'm going to start moving either both of my characters or maybe just one, probably towards this Oakwood, because that's kind of the first stop of the way, and it does unlock 2 items in the trade district, which then I can come back and purchase. So more than likely with a 2-player game, I'm probably going to take one of these characters, start moving towards it. You can't ever move diagonal. It's only in straight lines. Okay, so I'm going to move, and I'm only going to have a certain number of movement spaces, and that's defined here on our character board. And then I'm probably going to keep this guy probably around this area, maybe even sending out some workers to do some harvesting and trying to maybe get some resources for me until I can unlock, and then maybe, I send my dwarf kind of back to the City of Kings and I'm able to pick up some of these items. And that's how I utilize my 2 characters as I play out this scenario. And again, from a solo perspective, you can do that however you want. Even if you're playing non-solo, you're going to be working together to beat this game. It is a all win or all lose kind of situation. You are working together. It is not a competitive game. It is a cooperative game. And then once you have completed this objective, which would be our Oakwood, you're then going to go to Chapter 2, the Orc Hunt. I'm not going to keep going through this because I don't want to spoil sort of what you're going to experience, but you're then going to go to the Orc Hunt. You're going to read about what the Orc Hunt is, and then you're going to go down here and you're going to do whatever it has in this red color. It says Setup. You're going to change some things on the board, and then there's going to be a new objective, and there's going to be a reward. And these rewards, a lot of times, aren't always a quest or experience, where there is an experience tracker right down here. Bear, why don't you go and load up the overhead so the team can start taking a look at what we got here on the table. So if the city, and it's tracked right over here, there's a hope tracker and there's a morale tracker. If your morale ever gets to below 1, it gets this you lose spot. If your hope ever gets to you lose, then you lose the game. And that's kind of the hope of the city, the morale of your heroes. Those things will move over the course of the game. They will stay set depending on how many players are playing right from the beginning in certain spots, and indicate that right on your story setup. So that will be different story to story based on which story you're playing or which scenario you're playing and how many players that you have. But if you ever get to the you lose the game. So you're going to be managing your morale and your hope over the course of the game. And then for an example of some of the kind of the one-shot scenarios, you'll see those here at the bottom, and there's about that many of them. So there is a decent amount of one-shot. The rest of this is all part of the story-driven campaign. So the bulk of this game really falls in that story-driven campaign. But there are quite a few of just the one-shot scenario setups. On the front, it's going to give you that setup. On the back, it's going to give you the flavor of what's going on in that scenario and what you need to accomplish and what your objectives are and if there's any special rules. All right? So that is how the game is actually going to function as far as what you're trying to do. So let's just go ahead and hit a couple of things over here. We've talked about our quest hub. This is where you're going to be gaining quests. You can see there is an enormous amount of quests. Now I have added that small expansion deck of quests into here, but again, that's only that many. So you can see that you're getting probably that many with the base game. That's probably about right. So you're getting that many different side quests and quests from the quest hub just in the base part of the game. Again, that's only $7, so it's probably cheap to just kind of add it in just to give yourself a little bit more flavor. And these are all different, and these do follow different types of quests. So I'm getting a group quest. Okay, so there are group quests and there are individual quests. If you pull one of these quests and says individual quests at the very bottom, it's just tagged right there at the very bottom, you would set that next to your player board, and that would be that player's individual quest to complete. So let's say this one was an individual quest. It's a group quest. And it's called Mercy Mission. Our healing halls have run out of bandages, canvases, bedding, everything that we need to treat the wounded. We need a group of industrial souls to travel out and harvest enough linen to stop the disaster. Option A, take... and then it has two options. Option A, do something. Option B, do something. And there's rewards for those different options. So you can choose which kind of route you want to go. But let's say it says group quest. And again, right there at the bottom, it's indicated that. Then you would just set that quest kind of out in the open, sort of just at that quest hub. And that would be anything that any player could accomplish at any point in time. And everybody in the group would get whatever those rewards were, whether it was experience points or whatever. The whole group would get and gain that benefit. So that's how the quest hub will work, and you'll get those over the course of what you explore as you play the game, or as rewards. And then here in the trade district, we talked about that. Those are all the items in the game that you can acquire, and some of these are sets that you can acquire, which is pretty cool. When we look at our character, you can have something in the legs, body, head, and arms spot. And the only two that are available from the very start are the legs and the body. So you don't unlock the head and the armor. You can't put things in those areas until you get a certain level with your character and you have a certain level of things. And it will be indicated here on your board once you kind of level up your various different stats by accomplishing quests and by accomplishing parts of the story. You'll get experience down here. And you as a player will be able to decide from that experience track, do you want to update a stat? Do you want to update a stat on you or a stat on your worker? Because your worker, you have two of them you can unlock, actually have their own stats as well. Or do you want to unlock a skill? So as you advance your character, there is a full skill tree that is aligned to each character that is different, makes every character different in that way. The base stats are all the same, but your skill tree is completely unique. And obviously the items that you get over the course and how you, the items that you want to put on that character are unique. You're able to take these little tokens and start to build out these skill trees. And you do have to kind of build them out in straight lines. You'll see there's nothing here and here. That's where the temple comes into place. Every character does start with a basic skill tree skill card that's printed on your player board. And when you get to the top and you're ready to kind of go up, then you go to the temple and you select one of these cards here, which they're all different and they will give you different things to specialize in. These all mean different things, like you get more health, or you can move more, you can gather more when you go out and you try to mine for things, or you have more luck. I love having that luck. That's very powerful. It allows you to roll these luck die. Then they add extra successes, basically, to whatever challenge you're taking on. And you can take that card and you can put it right there. And then you would draw another one and replace the temple with a different type of card. Another way to just further customize your character play to play and with each play, which I thought was pretty cool. I love the skill trees in this game, or any game that really takes advantage of that skill tree aspect. It gives you a lot of variability in gameplay and in customizing your character, especially when you're playing a cooperative game like this. Because as you start to play the game, you may get in situations where it's like, wow, based on the scenario we have to accomplish, we can't just go for whatever we want. Like, this character needs to be a tank. This character needs to be the strongest healer that character can be. Or we need everybody to go DPS, and we just need to do some damage quick, take something out, and get off the board, because that's what we need to accomplish that part of the that story, that objective within that part of the story. So that's how these character boards are going to play out, and they're just fantastic. I love the way that they're designed. They've got the skill tree, they got all the basic stats, right? And it's your basic stuff: health, attack, movement, luck, things like that. The range that you can fire at. And then you've got this little area where you have your workers. One worker is automatically unlocked, and we'll start here. Here they are. We'll start in the City of Kings, and you can move those around per actions, and we'll talk about how the actions work. And then there's another worker, which is worker 2, which also comes with a 5th action that you can actually unlock at a certain point. Once you've kind of leveled up, you can unlock that worker and unlock that further action. And then your workers have a little area here with actions as well. So they do have a move, they have a gather, and they have a scavenge. And you can increase that. It just basically says how many of these dice you can roll, plus whatever's on the tile. The tile sometimes will give you extra, and that will say how much of something you get or how much you can scavenge of what's there. So it just makes your worker more efficient the more that you level them up. And that is a choice to you as a player as you gain more experience. It isn't, okay, when you get an experience point, everything goes up 1 and your workers, it doesn't work that way. You have a choice as a player to say, well, I have one experience point that I can level something up, I can change something. So do I give that to my hero, and is now all of a sudden his attack 1 stronger or his move 1 faster? Or do I give it to my worker and make them more efficient for gathering? So that's something that you're going to be discussing as players as well as you level up and change the aspects of your characters to see, okay, so start breaking this down, right? This is why this game is such a smart game. You've got the design of the skill tree, you have the customization of the character and the stats, you have the customization of your worker and stats, and all of that isn't just whatever everybody wants to do. It's optimizing all of that together as a party to ensure that you have the stats to make you successful to beat this game, because I will tell you that it's not easy. The game is extremely challenging from that perspective, and you really do have to make sure that you're optimizing the puzzle of how this all gets designed and it fits together to be able to beat what you're doing here as you go from tile to tile and explore and quest to complete your objectives. Yes, absolutely love it. I hope I'm coming through clear on this one, team. I do really like this game. It is a very, very smart, well-designed game, and I do recommend this title. Okay, so let's talk about a little bit about these items, because they are super cool as well. Again, they come in sets. This one looks cool, okay? This is the fire staff, yes. So to get this, you would need to have all of these resources that are right here that you have, scavenged or kind of mined or gathered, they call it in this game. You'd have to have that in the old barn, and that's right here. This is basically where all of your materials will be stored, and materials are shared amongst the party. As your workers pick up materials, they will go into a little spot right here that indicates they're carrying that. You can't use them until you get back to the City of Kings and you drop them off in the old barn. Once they're in the old barn, they're now accessible to be used to purchase things in the game. And you would need this amount of things to purchase this item, and then this item would give you these things down here at the bottom. It will indicate what this item will allow you to have extra-wise. This item gives you 2 more movement. It's got 2 little feet there. And again, some of these items do come in sets, which I thought was a pretty cool concept, that you get, sets that you can kind of build. You have to be very careful when you do that, though, because this game doesn't work it's not a buying and selling kind of mechanic game. You're not getting items and then going back and saying, I don't want this anymore, so I'll sell it for half its value. It doesn't work that way. When you're done with an item, you either give it to another player or it's discarded from the game. So if you're going for a specific set in the game, you need to make sure that No one else needs that item if you want to take it out and replace it with another item. Like this one here, the Imarin, this is a set. It's got 4 items in this set, and you can get the whole set, and this was an extra little Kickstarter thing. You can get the whole set, and if you're really going for that, if you get a couple of these, maybe it's something you're going for over the course of a game or a campaign or whatever, you're going to have to kind of trade those items off to somebody else, because once you're done with an item, you get rid of it, it's discarded from the game, it's gone. Okay? So just know that. These cards right here are location cards, so there are certain things in the game sometimes where monsters will move and or you need to move, and it's like, okay, what direction do I move? You will use these little location cards. They're very simple. They just kind of mark, the X is kind of where you're supposed to be, and then you just go, okay, can you get to 1? If you can, good. If you can't, go 2. If you can't, go 3. If you can't, go 4. You will absolutely be able to do one of those points of movement, and that's not going to be on every time, so don't misinterpret what I'm saying. It isn't like you shuffle this deck and then every time it's time to move, you flip one of these over and it tells you where to go. You are in full control of your movement. However, in the game, when it's like a monster needs to move or something needs to happen that's random, that's when you go to the movement location cards, and that just helps you see where it goes. Super simple. That's all it does. Okay? We have now talked about every component on the board except for these and these. These here are just extra stats that you're going to add on to things. There's an extra hit, deflection, as well as health. It's going to be for some enemies. I'm going to hit this right here first. This is your little time tracker. Round to round, you will move this to the next spot. Every round, you will move this. Once it goes all the way around, you lose 1 hope. Again, that's not good. So you're going to want to be gaining those hopes by accomplishing things in the game. But every full turn, every full cycle or full day, you're going to lose 1 hope. It's kind of the hope of the city, like, this thing is still draining on us. We're losing hope, and we might get overtaken by the evil at hand. There is a little icon on each one of these. As you're doing tiles, you're flipping these over, you're exploring, and they all have different artwork on them. Really fantastic. Little roads. They each have a really cool name. The Inn of Lost Hope. This is a quest. Okay, so this is a quest card. You'd pick up a quest. All right. All these tiles are different in nature, and they will spawn. These things will happen over the course of the game. You'll get poison, frost, fire. They do come in major and minor. All this means is when it gets here, if there's one of these symbols, you turn all the majors to minor. You turn all the minors, you get them off the board. It's a way to kind of time out sort of effects that are on the board. This track basically is the mechanic that does that. It's also the mechanic that will continue to balance and drive that hope down, so you're not always just moving in a positive direction. You have that resistance of this driving that hope back down. Okay, so that's what this little counter is for. I think thematically it's cool that they went with the different times during the day, because it kind of makes you feel like every full, cycle around, you are, and that's not a full round. It's just every turn you would do that. Okay, so it may be multiple rounds before it goes all the way around to the top again. But thematically, it makes you feel like you're really kind of going over the course of days as you're playing the game. So I thought that was a really good implementation of those mechanics there. The last thing are these little chips. One of them looks like a little road with a trap, like almost from Star Wars, where they take out the Ewok battle on Endor, and the 2 big logs come down and hit the walker. It's kind of what it looks like, but instead of 2, it's just 1 swinging log. These are traps, and then there are barricades and little encampments. This is another little cool mechanic that I was surprised to see, and I'm glad they included it. So with your workers, when you cash in resources, here in the City of Kings, it actually has a little printout diagram to tell you how to buy these things. But if you have a certain amount of resources, like if you have 8 fish, you can cash that in and you can buy one of these temporary structures, which is called, this one's an encampment, and your worker can pick that up. So you can take that, put it right there on your workers, in your workers' caravan or whatever, in the back there of the cart, and that worker can then start to move and take that encampment to a certain area on the board. and drop it down. So now, let's say that you're fighting something, but you know there's some monsters that are out there and you're battling. You're going to need you're going to need an encampment. You're going to need some extra defenses. Maybe you're going to want a barricade. Maybe you're going to want to put a trap out there that one of them will run into as it's trying to get to you. These are the temporary structures that you can buy, pick up, and then place on the board in your benefit. Kind of like barriers, or just giving yourself a, kind of a benefit to beating a certain type of a quest, or just blocking monsters and kind of corralling them maybe where you want them to be, or leading them into traps. And I love that. I thought that was so cool that they added these little temporary structures in. I don't know. For me, the level of thought and smart design that went into the use of the mechanics in this game, I feel were done really, really well. Maybe not every reviewer agrees. Maybe not every player agrees. But I absolutely feel like this game is designed very well. It's very fun, team, and I would highly recommend it. Okay? I've already said that once, but I'll say it again. Let's talk about what happens in a round, and then we're going to wrap this video up. So in a round, you're going to resolve the story. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to look at your story card, and you're going to see, have I met the objective? Do I get some kind of benefit? The second thing you're going to do is you're going to move the time tracker. We talked about that. That's going to, just move one spot on us. All right? And then you're going to basically activate whatever's going on. We're taking those minors off the board or taking our major effects down to minors. You're then going to take your player turn. And that's what comes into our little action. Now, this game isn't designed where, hey, you just got 4 actions. You can unlock your second worker with your 5th action later in the game as you level up. However, this game, you start with 4 actions, and those actions are represented by these little tokens right here. And then on your board, you have a number of actions that your workers, those are right over here, okay, as well as you as a player have that you can take. So you can say, I can move, I can explore, and some actions you can only do once, some actions you can only do twice, and that's just the way it is. So I can move, I can only do that once. I can explore, I have option to do that twice. I can attack or heal, I can do that twice. I can do a special action, which is really defined once you get into the skill tree, and it will tell you right on each skill if it requires a standard action, a special action, a transform action. These characters can actually transform, like our giant rock man here can actually transform into a big, tank rock and just kind of sit there and take damage, which is pretty cool. Also heals quite well in that form. Or you can interact, which means you're going to have to take an interact action if you go back to King's, I almost said King's Landing. If you go back here to the City of Kings, you'll need that interact action to be able to buy and sell or interact with the trade districts or even other players if you want to give items. When you do interact with other players, only one of you needs to take that interact action, and that is important. That way you don't have to burn multiple ones if you have multiple players that want to, kind of trade things. And you can trade as many things as you want. It isn't like one interact action is one item. You can trade 15 items if you want with one interaction item. Or action. So you'll decide as a player where you want to put those. So I said, oh, you know what? I'm gonna move. So it's kind of like you're gonna have to program and sort of think out what that's gonna look like. So I'm gonna move. Once I move, I'm gonna explore, and I'm gonna put on an attack and a heal action because I might find a monster when I explore. So just to make sure, I'm gonna put an attack action, and then you know what? I'm going to go ahead and put another explore as well. So that's going to allow me to move, and I would go here and I would say, well, how far can I move? And I would look here, and it would say, well, you can move up to 2. So let's say I'm going to go up through here, and I got to move. Now you can't do other actions in between your movement. I can move up to 2. I don't have to do that. But let's say that I want to do that. I cannot move from an unexplored tile to an unexplored tile. I can move from an unexplored tile to an explored tile. I can move from an explored tile to an unexplored tile, but I can't go unexplored. So I'm going to move here, and it's only going to allow me to move upwards to 1. And then I do have an explore action that I have given myself for this example, so I can flip this over and explore this tile, And this one allows me to, this is a tile that I can do some gathering in if I want. It's called the Cogshed Works, and it is an area that I can do some gathering. However, as a hero, I'm not going to be doing gathering there, but now I know that there is a tile right next to the City of Kings that I can do some gathering. So, you know, on my next turn, maybe I should have reserved some of those actions for my worker and being able to allow my worker to move, and then maybe my worker to, you know, actually work. That probably would have been a better way to design right from the beginning some of those actions I could have allocated between my hero and my worker. You know, worker, now you could move here and now start to do some gathering. So then give me the 1 blue die, because I do have 1 on my gather, and I'd be able to roll that die and then see how much stone I'd be able to gather. Ooh, well, I got one of these little ghost faces. And essentially what that means is, and there's only 1 of them on, no, there's 2 of them on a die, on a 6-sided die, and that means I basically just made I gained a bunch of attention, and I didn't get anything. So I made a bunch of noise, I'm hammering around at the rock, but I wasn't able to actually harvest and gain anything. Yeah, stupid worker. So now I've just made a bunch of noise. Once you get 4 of these, so I would put one of those, there's actually a token, that I've got it down here, there's actually a token that has that symbol on it, and I would place that on my map tile, and once I get 4 of them, once I was to place my 4th one, I would take those off, and then I would plant a monster there. And the monsters do come with little banners as well that you'll put on these stands, and that will indicate which monster is where on the board, because you'll have your monsters kind of laying out, but you need to know where they are. They don't fit on these tiles, so that's what you do here. You find the banner that matches the symbol. These don't match, but you find the banner that matches the symbol on this monster card, and you set it right where you would discover that monster would pop up. That way you can kind of track the monsters and where they are on the board. And again, once you draw enough attention by doing things like trying to scavenge and or gather, you're kind of thematically making noise as you're doing that and gaining attention from the surrounding areas. If you do too much of that, all of a sudden now you're going to have something you're going to need to fight and mess with. Now, workers can't ever be killed. However, they are locked down if there's a monster where a worker is. It's kind of out of commission. You don't lose the worker, they don't have health, they don't die. But you essentially need to get that monster out of there, or you need to kill that monster to free up your worker to then be able to get back to the city or continue moving around the board. So these can become to be big nuisances for workers if they get locked down, you know, by a monster if they make too much noise. Okay, so that is essentially all of the mechanics, I believe, of this game. There are some other, you know, little rules here and there, like you can help people when they fall in pits. There's some more interaction type rules. There's obviously quite a few things you can do here with your skill trees, and there are many more characters. There's more characters than I have here. There's actually 5. I will show you really quick what you do. I'll show you the miniatures here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm sorry, 5, 6. There's 6 characters, and here are those miniatures here. Right there in that box, you can see the 2 that are there. We will get these out quickly, and you can see the rest of them. They're all at the same scale, except for our big guy here. He's at a much larger scale in comparison. The rest of them are all kind of the same scale, which I would say is probably a 28 millimeter. It might be 32, but between a 28 and 32 millimeter. But yeah, these miniatures look, and each one of them, they look really good. I think the quality that they have on these miniatures, really nice. It's made with a good hard plastic. It's not the super hard plastic. It does have a little bit of flex to it, but it's made with a good hard plastic. I found that everything looks nice and tight. Nothing's really bent on anything. These came out looking fantastic, and the quality is awesome. And again, there isn't too many of them, so this is probably a good opportunity to paint these up. Okay, so that is City of Kings. It's everything I'm going to say. Again, the timer didn't start, so I probably went on way longer than I wanted to here, but I really wanted to dive deep into this one just to show you what you get with this platform, and frankly, how awesome I think this platform is. It is definitely an experience and a buy in my mind. If you like these games where you got some worker placement, you've got some character questing, you've got some character development, and it's all tied into sort of a tactical puzzle that you have to solve to be able to accomplish your objectives in the overarching story. All right? That's it. City of Kings. Go check it out. Hit that like. Hit the subscribe button to join the team. Keep rolling them crits. This has been the McGuire Review, and we'll see you next time, Bear. Let's roll!